tech world.
Recording is on.
So did I get that right? The aversion therapy is the one where you give people loads more of the thing that they're basically addicted to.
Yeah.
So they basically choke on. Yeah. So
That's really
all of these things are attempts. All of these psychiatric therapies and things from the 1920s, basically pre the pharmaceutical revolution, they were attempts to rewire people's brains. So they did glucose therapy and lobotomy and stuff like that, where they really are attempts to radically just re-alter people's brains. And then with MK Ultra and those kind of things, where they did LSD research, that was also the idea, was that it could rewire people's brains. And I think LSD shows a lot of potential. I think they're kind of starting research and stuff again.
No, the cold therapy I'm talking about, it's really re-traumatizing the person in a hostile, non-nice environment, and to recreate the origin of the original trauma. And it addresses extremely severe cases. It's not something, but it is used, and it can stop them from getting worse.
It's the same idea. It's just to get people to rewire the neurons.
It's the same idea. Yeah, it's the same idea. Yeah.
It goes back very far. I think King George III was. They did it to him.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the idea of traumatizing people to cure them, it's basically it's very old and well established all the way back to shamanic times, I think. And I think that's what a lot of the things with ayahuasca and psychotropic drugs, mescaline and magic mushrooms, and that they are getting you out of a rut. Right?
I think it's because it's based on the assumption that every mental illness is post-traumatic, and that is controversial. But human life is post-traumatic. Being a human is growing up is a. So it's that could be another subject of conversation.
Life. But I think everybody's been traumatized by industrial society, and I think most people just don't realize it. It's not obvious to people because they have a normalcy bias, and they taught that the majority is the correct thing. Go run with the herd, and the whole herd has gone nuts. I mean, every one of us is barking mad, and we're not calibrated to see that the exceptions are deviant, and the norm is good. So then, basically, even a psychiatrist will say, "Is like, well, this is not normal behavior." And it's like, well, normal behavior means that you basically joining this psychotic cult that's going to snuff itself out. So I wouldn't say normal is desirable by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what we've convinced ourselves, that the majority is normal. It's like, not in this case. So the thing was, shamans had the job of knocking people out of that rut. And so since shamans don't exist, odd people in that have been relegated and suppressed by our alien cortex in this.
There's a lot of plastic shamans, and there's a lot of people are selling themselves as shamans, and unfortunately they're taking people on paths that are just absolutely, it's desperate to see some people who are calling themselves shamans. There's a few left, probably in Siberia and some very remote places of South America and some places like that, but other than that, you've got this kind of booming of shamans everywhere. And
they're mainstream in South Africa. They're mainstream in Africa. They call witch doctors or sangomas, but they're mainstream. The majority of medicine done in South Africa is done by sangomas, not by Western medical practitioners. So, but the value of the shamans, of traditional shamans, was to, I think, get people out of a rut, and basically, I think it's a counter reaction to psychopathy. So it's kind of the balance for psychopathy.
Yeah.
So what our society has done is it's gone too rational. It's too psychotic. basically we have psychopaths leading us, and we're too rigid, we're too alien cortex, and that's the psychopathy. And we've lost the traditional antidote to that, which is shamanism. And I think that's why in the Capitol riot, it's very deep psychologically what went on in the Capitol riot, and from so many angles. I mean, it's symbolic from the point of view, just from the point of view as a capital is capitas is from your head. It's basically, it means the head. It is the Capitol dome. It's almost epitomizes the alien cortex. And so the fact that the Capitol building was rifled, and and that riot is deeply significant psychologically. And
there was that guy dressed like pretending to have shamanic. You remember that sort of?
Well, I think that guy, the Yunnan shaman, the reason why people were so fascinated by it is because they can recognize in folk memory what's going on, and it is an exorcism. Basically, what that QAnon shaman, even the shallowest liberal that thought, didn't think it was ridiculous. They were kind of fascinated by it. No, the fascination is that it has deep roots. Shamans are, according to Polemani and a good Julian Silverman and these guys, there's no difference between schizophrenics and shaman. And so there's the shamanic explanation for schizophrenia, I think, is a good one. And since schizophrenia runs in the population at a rate of about 1%, and is exactly the same as psychopathy is also 1%, and they're both genetic. So they assume, and they're very old, so they assume that they have some evolutionary purpose. And I think it's easy to see what the evolutionary purpose is. You do need psychotic people in a traumatizing or experience like a war or a disaster. You need people that are batshit crazy. It's like in war times you have people like Patton and that, but they're pure psychopaths. But they come to the fore in those times, and I think that they have some beneficial survival value. When the war is finished, those people become a dire threat, and so then they need to be eliminated. And then the antidote to them is the shaman. And so I think that's what we're seeing now. We have a world full of psychopaths and shamans. I mean, like Roger Hallam is fulfilling the shamanic role. So these shamans are coming out of the woodwork, and it's corrective. It's healthy. Hugely disturbing for people, but they all want to be on this narrow little path. But that narrow little path now, everybody can see is even Klaus Schwab can see that narrow path is suicidal. So by the time an oaf like Klaus Schwab can see that we're on the bad path enough to say we need a reset, it's like, when a psychopath is telling you need a big reset, it's a great reset is like, yeah, you better believe it. And so, yeah. Anyway, for us in the meantime, all of this is hopefully useful to you personally.
Any shamans in the group?
What's that?
I said, any shamans in the group?
Yeah, I'm fulfilling a shamanic role. Yeah. What I'm doing is a shamanic role. Yeah. It's basically I dispense with the horns and shit, but yeah.
There's comments in the on the sidebar there, and I just have a question, or maybe it can be for next time, but there seems to be a quote conspiracy theory unquote that the COVID-19 disease pandemic is a planned one, based on going to the website of the World Economic Forum, where there's a page where the coronavirus is the center of all the strategies and the plans that will happen, and it's related to the Great Reset. So, just thinking about that, the Great Reset, like you said, is very orderly, very planned, very alien cortexy, my initial thinking was, oh, this is so bad that if the COVID-19 is planned and it's the jumping point for pushing all these, for instance, the mRNA vaccine, which is totally different from other types of vaccines. And I'm not a doctor or biologist. Sophie would probably be able to put more information to us about that. But it's just to push ahead with the agenda. But now I'm thinking that based on our discussion, perhaps the COVID-19 pandemic, as you say, is not so bad in terms of the psychological breakthroughs that people may have. But still, and also I'm thinking that something that's planned so well like that, it seems like there are so many points of weakness where it can collapse or not be implemented. Or perhaps I'm just being naive because people with billions of dollars can get this going really, and transform us into cyborgs or whatever they want to do. That's just my comment.
Yeah. Okay, now you just opened the thing which we came in on, and that's what Gary raised. And so, unfortunately, here's a good hour or two.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, I think maybe we must keep it for next time. But I can tell you my view on this is yeah, don't know how I can make it short, but there definitely are conspiracy theories. But they're not like people think. And I think it's kind of important, I think, to explain my view of conspiracy theories. But yeah, the general thing is that we're in one of those dramatic times in human history. And what's people get a bit hung up on in terms of conspiracy theories is seeing like 12 guys in pointy hats, sitting around a table. Now, it's complicated by the fact that there are really guys like that. So there really are people like Bilderbergers and Skull and Bones and stuff that really throw, I think, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists off. Charles Schwab, when he got presented something, I can't remember what it was, but
do you mean Klaus Schwab?
Yeah, Klaus Schwab. He got the founder of the World Economic Forum. He got presented the stuff in this fucking occult regalia. He's there on tape, and so then everybody gets bent out of shape. But it's not quite like people think. The first thing to know is that everything's a cult. Everything's a cult, right? We're in a cult. The mainstream society is a cult. QAnon is a cult. America, the Capitol building, is the founding fathers' cult. Everything is a cult. So the thing is that, if you say, well, oh, you're a nutcase because there aren't 12 people sitting around a table directing the world, well, you're thinking too small, because if you've listened to what I've been saying, is the alien cortex is kind of like an archetype, and there's a meta-alien cortex. So you say, like, well, don't think of it like 5 guys sitting around a table. Just think, they're 5 energy companies. They're 5, food companies. So if you say, well, you're a mad conspiracy theorist to say that they get together. Well, yeah, they do. The banks get together. They get together, the Bank of International Settlements. These guys get together in Davos. And basically, it's the meta-alien cortex. So it's not like 5 individuals sitting around the table, but 5 corporations in law and in psychology. They are entities in themselves. They are a single cult. They have personage in themselves. So you can get 5 big tech companies, and then those are the guys in the pointy hats. It's not the directors or the CEOs of those. It's the company. The company, Apple or Amazon or something. As a collective, it is a leviathan that is the equivalent of a conspiring person, and it's not that exotic, because like you can go back just a little while where these guys, the big food companies, they were prosecuted for colluding to set the price of lysine. Well, that was in the 90s. They don't do that anymore because they collude with everything. Basically, if you've just seen the big tech companies, they monopolies. They just got together coordinating this program of censorship. So you say, well, yeah, but it's not some cabal of guys sitting. Yes, it is. They got together, guys representing those big tech companies, and they said, this is what we're going to do. They coordinated it. So conspiracy just means conspire. It just means con together, and spy means, is from spiras. It basically means breathe together. So conspiracy means a group of people breathing together. And basically, people do that. They get together and they breathe together. They basically coordinate their actions. And that's happening everywhere. And it's happening in all dimensions. It's happening top down and left to right. You get together with your friends and conspire. I mean, every school kid is getting together with one lunch table, conspiring against, and everybody says, oh, you got a tinfoil hat. If you think they're not, everything's a conspiracy theory. It's like fish, people can't see it because conspiracies are like water for a fish, and we all like fish swimming in these conspiracies. So that's the one thing. But then when they all come to a head at a dramatic time like this, you see all these coincidences that look far beyond something that could just be a random coincidence. And then you get these synchronicities, you get these crashing synchronicities. What that means is not that the whole cabal of people that set this up, planned it, and executed it. What it means is even those people are actors in this play of archetypes. And so everything just gels in a way. If you get on those high points of psychic energy and transformation in humanity's history, all the archetypes clash together. So even the main players like Klaus Schwab and stuff putting these things together, they almost swept along by the tide they're creating. And that's the way to see it, is that not somebody came and released COVID as part of the Great Reset. It's just that kind of thinking converges to make that kind of outcome manifest. And the way it happens is, you get China thinking we're going to, have this kind of conspiracy to grow bigger, put a peg on the dollar, and build our power. Nobody can say that isn't a conspiracy. That's you read in the newspaper. Then to do that, they start thinking in the way of somebody that is like that. What they do then is they start thinking, well, we need bioweapons research. We need to do this illegally. They start cutting corners in almost predictable ways. Then you get something like the Wuhan lab set up. And then basically it's doing bioweapons research. It's only a matter of a time because the same guys with the same thinking are thinking, well, we have to cut costs and basically the safety thing, and we're going to steal the IP to, set up a safety lab, safety level 4 lab and stuff like that. It's like, they had to steal that technology. It's a whole mindset, and where this is going to go, and it's going to be a fucking accident. And then the accident happens and you say, well, this is too good to be true. But it's not really planned. It's just a vector that comes round from the whole set of thinking. So you must think, basically, when you're in, it's basically like the movie, Chinatown. It's like, and what they say, like, it's Chinatown, Jake, it's Chinatown. And what he's saying is saying, like, that's what goes on in this territory. If you think this way, you do this stuff, and everything converges, and then it looks like, whoa, that looks like it was planned. And say, no, it's basically, if you keep on dancing on a wire, you're going to fall off the wire. And the wire you fall off is the wire you chose to dance on. So all these things converge in this massive synchronicity. And it goes deeper than that, but I'll leave it at that, just as a way to think about those conspiracies. It's not as if you could go now and figure out who might be behind a big conspiracy like that, say shoot them in the head and redirect history. It would be impossible for you to actually do that. The forces are so much bigger than those people, even the people that might have started it. So, yeah. But we must go deeper into this because I feel it's very important, especially at a time like this. Yeah,
Thank you.
It leads into Jungian archetypes and synchronicity. But we are in a very synchronous time. And these potential times in history are like that.
That would be very interesting to go into that. Really,
It's,
thank you. Yeah,
it's like a Kairos convergence of all these things that have been happening in the background coming together.
It's a convergence of Kairos and Chronos. So, you know, the saying is that every Chronos, every Kairos has a Chronos, but not every Chronos has a Kairos. So what we're seeing now is all these threads of Kairos coming together. It's like a grand play, and these archetypes sync together. So very famous people that were at the convergence of these great events in history. People like Churchill, they had far too many coincidences in their lives. It looks like a conspiracy. You know, for example, Churchill always happened to be right at the point of history, almost where the spotlight was, wherever the newspapers were, wherever the great thing in that day, right to the extent that he was in the gallery in New York at the crash of 1929. As the crash happened, there's Churchill standing in the gallery watching. And he almost, you know, walked through history that way. Almost like Forrest Gump, you know, the Forrest Gump movie, where he always manages to be at where America's attention is in history. And Churchill did that. And I delved very deep into trying to understand how that happens, and I'll try and share it with you. But it's rather fascinating. We're at one of those times where, you know, basically all these events are bigger than the people that create them, even though you've got to be pretty sophomoric, you know, middling intellect, conformist liberal to go like, oh, they're not conspiracy theories. Oh, you think people got together and say, yes, they did. But what you don't understand is that these events are much bigger than the people that are creating them. They're almost pawns in their own tide. So Hitler was also one of those guys. They're very, very, yeah, and Trump was also turning out to be one of them. But all right, well, that's better do that for now. But if you want an exercise for this week, then I'd say just do the same one we did last time, of just try and catch yourself in something that you normally do habitually, and force yourself to do something.
And to do it just in the moment when it happens, not to think back, just to try.
No, not your one. So you were the one before. What I did last time, maybe I can't remember if you were here or not, but I said get something that you do that's completely routine, that you do all the time habitually. So in some of your regular behavior, like walking to the car every morning, you
yes,
in the car door, and then you'll notice that you do it in the same rote fashion, with your eyes in the same place. And so you force yourself to do something every day. Look over your back shoulder when you do it. When you do something different, you know, basically put your head at a different angle, stretch your shoulders back, do anything that breaks the paradigm. So you make something that's habitual, just slightly novel, and go as nuts as you like. But Gary nailed that one straight away. He realized the hidden intent in that. But,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
You'll have to go back to the previous video if you want to know.
Yeah, but I've forgotten that. I tried the last time, but I didn't pick up all that. I remember now.
Okay, so let's do that one again, and then do the one you were talking about, observing the layers as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. And if it all goes badly wrong, anybody can contact me and say, oh, this is going really badly wrong. But if your first aid is to just do the grounding exercise.
Yeah, the grounding. Mm-hmm.
GS has some comments in the chat if you want to look.
Yeah, I was looking at going south. He's in a London bus.
Hi, Torsten. It's like, yeah, Torsten is shamanish, that's for sure. Yeah. You see, Torsten, you should talk about your experience too. There are conspiracies all the time, and so there are communal garden conspiracies like the tinfoil hat ones. but and there are conspiracies within conspiracies. Like they will do psyops like 5G. They're well capable of starting. I don't want to say false flag, but they are quite capable of starting a false flag psyops where they will do spurious things about 5G or something like that. Just a wacko theory about 5G that no one can take seriously, and that's its aim, is so that they can say, oh, anybody that says something about 5G is a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. And they're quite capable of doing that reverse psychology.
Yeah.
That's a well-known technique, but yeah, most of the things that like contrails and stuff like that, those are kind of homegrown and nutty ones. But they things like Area 51 and stuff, they did put out a lot of conspiracy theories about UFOs and stuff, and they did it to protect secret programs. There were real secret programs with real secret technology. So yeah, but anyway, we ought to go into this because I think the conspiracy theories are very important, and we've gone into this dumbass rut that liberals have largely got us into, that like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory equals it's wrong. It's like, no, if you think conspiracy theories are wrong, you're just a dipshit. There are some conspiracy theories that are wrong, but they're all conspiracies, wall to wall, all the time. That you need to get in your head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think if the coronavirus happened 30 years ago, the Earth would be better off or worse off or the same?
I don't think it could have happened. You see, again, this is the kind of thing with the conspiracy theory. Things have its chaos, and I don't see it could have happened. You see, one of the things that made this happen are convergence of a number of things. One of them is air travel. So up until the 70s, there wasn't enough air travel. If they wanted to stop this pandemic straight away, the first thing to do is to ground all aircraft. That's just a basic thing. The fact that they're not doing it means they're murderers. But there wasn't enough personal air travel until recently. Basically, where this has come from is really now people are going to get upset because you can't say anything bad about China because it's politically incorrect. But this is an inevitable result of since 2000. If you look at the number of people that started traveling in China, it went from like no one. Well, like one plane they had, Cathay Pacific, and then basically it got to 1 million people by about 2004, and then it got to fucking enormous numbers, like 500 million or something by about 2015. Now, any epidemiologist can tell you, you put that many people on planes jetting around the world, it's a pandemic's coming like tomorrow. Everybody goes, oh, Bill Gates is such a genius for predicting it. It's like, you'd have to be a moron not to see it coming. So basically, you cannot get that many people. These viruses are all over the place. There are millions of them. And you can't put that many people on a plane and fly them around and have this integrated economy without that happening. It's just suicidal. And so it was pure negligence on China's part. China has a lot to be responsible for, but you can't really blame them because this is seriously good. This is in the long tail end of this video, and no one will see it. But you can't really blame China because they're stuck. Everybody's stuck. Like, I keep on calling Xi Jinping a psychopath and stuff, and he's a psychopath, all right, but he's a stuck psychopath. He doesn't have any choices. There's not a lot, even if you're a fucking genius, if you stepped into Xi Jinping's shoes, you'd probably have to do exactly what he's doing. So you can't single these guys out too much and say, oh, these guys are, I will, I'll make a sport out of it. But secretly, these guys are trapped. They can't really do much. So basically, China had to industrialize like this. They would have been in trouble anyway, but it means that we all fucked. Anyway, on that happy note.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, that's right.
Year of the ox. Definitely year of the ox. Basically,
Yeah.
everyone gets castrated this year, that's for sure. All
So
right.
much to think about.
Lots to think
All
about.
right.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, lots to think about.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much,
Thank
All right.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Until next
everyone.
week.
Thank you. Have a nice week.
You
Have a nice
too.
week.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.